what's going on in Glendale or some of these other cities that people are protesting. Why is there an organization called Gays Against Groomers?
Yeah.
Gays Against Groomers? What? What do you do? He says, man, I just wanted to be gay and leave me alone. I'm not trying to be, grooming kids. That's not my job. I just want to be gay. Leave me alone. We've made so much progress. Yeah. These guys, I'm not that guy. I'm not this person, right? Yeah. So I think the part that they fear the most, if you read Communist Manifesto, there's a book written by Cleon Skousen. I think he was like a former CIA agent for like 15 years. He wrote a book called The Naked Communist. Yeah. One of the things he talks about how getting rid of God, well, they're succeeding in that area, but not fully yet. Yeah. Getting rid of the family nucleus, well, we already know what is the purpose of this LGBTQ movement? What is the purpose of this transgender? What is the purpose of, let me get this straight, this person cannot buy a gun at 13. This person cannot go in the military at 13. This person cannot vote at 18. This person cannot own a car at 13, but they can transition. The most important decision of their lives you're okay with? Yes. Now, that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me. I think you said something at the beginning, the concept of being tolerant. You know what? Yeah, it's okay. We can have gays. Oh, it's okay. We can have this. It's okay. Listen, man, you've crossed the line a little bit. Yeah. I think faith, family, kids, values, principles, they fear the hell out of it.
Absolutely.
And I think that community is rising up.
No, you're totally right. But you made a really interesting point there about empires falling. And this is where I kind of feel like we're entering a new stage of the world because it's never really done before. Because typically when empires fell, the world was far more polarized. If the empire fell, there was nowhere for the corrupt dictators of said empire to go. The empire's fallen, or let's say England fell. It's very hard to get exile in France. You could do it a little bit. But let's say America fell today. Let's say it completely collapsed and it fell. The people who archetyped that downfall, do you think they'd be in America? Do you think they'd be sitting there waiting to get scooped up? Do you know who they are? Can you recognize them? What's their name? Even if you could, do you think they're in America or do you think they're skiing in Switzerland? This globalism, the whole point of globalism is that they don't care when empires fall. When you globalize the world, then you have a chessboard. I lost the knight. Doesn't matter. Call the bishop. Sack the queen. Who cares? There's so many things I want to say, but I don't want to die. But there's truth. This can be proven and shown even with this current proxy war. Europe and all the gas prices and the inflation rate in Europe has gone to the moon to fund this proxy war in Ukraine. Why has this happened? Because America's in charge of everything, and America has decided that Europe has to bear the brunt of the bullshit for its proxy war. You're going to have higher gas prices, you're going to have inflation, you're going to have mass civil unrest, you're going to deal with it all. And we're going to sit over here and insulate ourselves because we have the global reserve currency, and the war is going to happen over there, and everyone's going to die, and we're in charge. So now we have this globalism. How can an empire fall when you have basically two camps? There's two teams now. There's two sides left. So I agree with you completely about empires falling, but I'm saying if the empires fell in days of old, the kings would be strung up. But now when the empire falls, nobody notices. It doesn't matter. We don't know who the kings are. We don't know who's in charge. We don't know where they are. They're not going to be anywhere near the trouble. That's for fucking sure. They're just going to be somewhere else. Oops. Oh, well. And do they really care? Do the people in charge of the world care if America's crime rate goes up 1,000%? Would they lose sleep at night?
I actually think they do partially. Because think about it. So I'm with Andrew Schultz, and I'm taking your position with him. Yep. Okay, you know who Andrew Schultz is? Good guy. And he says, part of me that gives me comfort is knowing these guys are so obsessed with their money. He may be wrong. We can debate this. Yep. They're so obsessed with their money that there's no way they're going to let America fall. Because if America falls, everything else falls. So they're going to go just as much as they can to control, but not enough to get the machine to break because they're so in love with money and power, they don't want to give that up.
Well, I hope that's true. I would love for that to be true. But my argument is that these people are already so deeply entrenched, they print the money. They'll print the new money. They don't care. If they cared about money, COVID wouldn't have happened. They closed the entire economy. I don't think they care about money. I think they control the world to a level where you want to eat? You want water? Like, I don't think they give a shit about money. They'll print the new money. They'll change the name of it and print the new one. At a certain level of power, I think they're so above and beyond all of our concepts of how the world works that they don't have any interest in any of it. I don't think they give a shit. I think if you were to go to these people, whoever they are, and say, we're going to take your money away, they would just laugh at you. You think you can take my money? You think you understand money? You think you're going to damage the stock market? You think I give a shit about share price? I think there's a level beyond all of this. And they're the ones who truly are running things, and they truly have no influence. And in fact, the harder they damage the economy and the more damage they do to money, the more people are dependent on governments to eat. That's where communism comes from, right? The more poor we get, the more you need the government just so you have food in your mouth. How can you resist the government if they feed you? You can't. So yeah, like, and I sound pessimistic, and I'm not pessimistic. And I do believe the answer to all of these things is free thinking and truth and God and communities standing up for themselves and changing the general consensus. I do believe that. Because to a degree, although we talk about people who run the world, to a degree we run the world. Because our tolerance level is what runs the world. There's more of us than them. So to a degree you say, who's in charge of the world? Well, I like to say, well, we are. Because it's all about, we're the abused wife in this relationship. How much crap are we going to put up with? We set the limit. They're going to come at us with everything they can, right? We set the limit. But the problem is they try very, very hard to, one, increase our limit to the max, which is tolerance, and two, to divide us to the point where we don't ever unite long enough. I love what happened in Glendale, what you just told me about. That should be happening in every single school across America, all of them.
Oh, they would love it if you retweet the video for them and give more exposure.
I will do.
You know, when you're saying this, I'm reading a book right now, Robert Moses. I don't know if you know who he is or not, Power Broker. This is a guy, it would be a very interesting guy for you to study. This is the guy that built New York, okay? And he came up and hated, complicated person, misunderstood. The more they would push him back, the more he stood up. The more they would say, no, this is not fair what you're doing, the more he would even say, I'm going to go even more extreme. And so if in New York you mention the name Robert Moses, there's going to be a camp that's going to say scumbag, racist, white supremacist, all this stuff. And there's a side that's going to say, this guy built a bridge, this guy did this, this guy did that. He would make it so hard for a certain community to go to the nicer community. He would put the the bridge so low that trucks couldn't go through because he didn't want the bad people to go into this. Like he was that sharp. And one time in the book, they talk about how Robert Moses, he says, look, the one thing about Robert Moses, he could give a shit about money. He could give a shit about, it was all about his influence over. So I agree, there's certain people that don't care about money. They're more driven by control, influence, all of that. The part that, we're talking about the movie Fury, Vinny, and you give me this whole thing about Fury, the scene where Shia LaBeouf is reading out of the Bible and he's crying while he's reading this. And then, if you want to text me and then afterwards, you see Brad Pitt quotes exactly what scripture it was, but they never showed how much faith he had. And the whole point was, I'm ready to die. We know we're here. This is going to be happening. We're in the attack. I think the people, there's a part about Trump. I had a girl on, Whitney Webb. I don't know if you know who Whitney Webb is. We had her on. Okay. Yeah. And we start talking about different things. And I've been having a lot of weird guests on lately. And making a comparison between the Kennedy family and Trump pisses a lot of people off. But those two families, forget the fact that one's a Democrat, one's a Republican. They were both anti-establishment. They were both anti-military industrial complex. They were both anti-CIA, anti-FBI, anti-all of this stuff, right? We saw what happened with Kennedy. We saw what happened with Reagan. We saw what happened with Lincoln. All these guys were anti-establishment guys. We saw what happened with Trump. The part about Trump that, made the other side uncomfortable is, okay, we can kill the guy. That's been the strategy for a long time. You can't really do it today as much because they fear one thing that they're the most jealous and envy. You know what that is? They do not want to build a martyr. They fear building a martyr because that's the ultimate high that they want to get. They do not want to build a martyr, right? So, okay. We're going to humiliate the crap out of you. We're going to embarrass the crap out of you. We're going to publicly try to do this. We're going to come in between you and your kids. We're going to go get your daughter to be more LGBT. We're going to get her to be on this side. And we're going to pin this. That's the strategy. We're going to put break the entire family apart, right? And he still stands up there. And to them, it's like, what the hell do we need to do for you to, just sit down and be quiet, not willing to do it?
That's right.
Do you think, again, going back to it, more of those types of men and women who are misunderstood and complicated stories, they're not perfect, far from it. More of those guys are the ones that are saying, it's just not going to happen on my watch, man.
And that's what we need. And by the very nature of being the kind of person who's principled enough to risk his own personal situation in life, if you have principles that strong, you're going to be disliked by some people. You're never going to have a person who is principled enough to take risk to his public detriment for the good of what he believes in, who's liked by everybody. That's a logic fail, right? Because he has principles which are hard lines, and people exist across the entire spectrum. So there's going to be people who exist outside of those lines. That's what I liked about Trump. He's not perfect, of course not, but he says what he means what he says. I actually disagree with him on many things. But he says what he means what he says, and that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of a man who says what he means and means what he says because he can't be bought, because he's principled. He can't be bought. Even now, if they were to come to me with $100 million and say, we'll sponsor you with this company, it's $100 million, you just have to shut up, I'd say, no, I don't want your money. I don't want the money. I don't need money. There's nothing else to buy. I bought everything. I don't need it. My principle's worth more. And that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of principles, and it goes back to the original point. They're trying to remove all of our morality, all of our baseline understanding of things.
Connect is an application which allows you to take a minute to connect with influencers from all around the world. My name is Andrew Tate, and I'm available to speak directly to you on Connect.
That's how they inject you with the slave mind. That's exactly what it is. And you're right. History has always been that way. And now it's under conscious assault. I've never said this before. I've never even thought this before. This is a brand new thought for me. But I would like to think in times of old, in history, perhaps everybody was the same. Everybody was principled. Everybody had parameters, but they were different parameters. Perhaps they were competing ideas. But I think in the modern world, it's not so much competing parameters. It's just people who believe in things, and people who don't believe in anything besides what they're fucking told, and it changes every day. You have the empty brains, the slave minds, and the people who actually stand up for something. And the free thinkers. But the slave minds, you can't say, well, they believe in a different ideology, because they don't. They believe in what they're told to believe in on that particular day. It changes. They don't have any true core belief. They just repeat. I talk about the Matrix all the time, and people say, why did you choose that terminology? And I chose that terminology because it is perfectly accurate in describing exactly what is happening. The Matrix is a computer program which is designed to control your mind so that your body can be used to power the machines. That's exactly what happens when they make you watch the news. To control your mind so you can continue to use your body to work some garbage job and suffer from inflation and power the machines. Machines being soulless people who are in charge of the world. But there's also a million other different ways you can compare the Matrix to the real world. In the Matrix, they say anybody can become an agent at any time. If their mind is not unplugged, they become an agent. If their mind is not freed, they turn into an agent. You can see that in real life. Mention COVID to an NPC. Mention Trump to an NPC. You can sit and have a perfectly cordial, normal conversation with somebody for an hour and be fine. And you can mention one of the particular subjects which they are programmed to hate by the Matrix itself, and they will turn into an agent in real time. And you will see them now start to genuinely, emotionally dislike you as a person. They were your friend for an hour. Yeah. Now they hate you. They will turn into an agent. COVID was perfect. I would sit with people and we'd all be friends until I mentioned that COVID's garbage. And now they're an agent. What do you mean COVID's garbage? My friend's grandma was 99 and she got sick. Okay. Sorry, that doesn't change my view. And they change. And the Matrix is actually a perfect, absolute explanation of what's happening. And Morpheus says it. If your mind's not freed, you can be one of them. And that's what's happening. And this is why we don't have competing sets of parameters which are trying to argue about which is the best way to run the world. We have people with parameters who believe in family and love and God and tradition and taking care of yourself and taking care of others. There's people with moral standard, and there's people with none. Zero. Empty vessels, agents who are programmed on any given day of what they're supposed to care about. These people can't tell me they care about things. That's what's most annoying about my position, because it's absolutely and utterly weaponized virtue they use against me. The people who hate me because, one, I truly believe, and I know this is arrogant to say, but I feel like I have to say it. There's definitely a massive jealousy implement. If I wasn't so tall and rich and good looking, it wouldn't be happening. They don't fucking like me. They don't like me because I remind them of the jock at school that took their girl. That's part of it, right? They don't like me personally. So it's true. So they try and find an attack vector. And what happens when you have somebody who's monumentally successful across all realms of human endeavor? The only way you can attack them is by calling them a bad person. They can't call me stupid. They can't call me ugly. Can't call me broke. Can't call me weak. They can't call me any of these things. So how do we attack this guy? Well, he's a bad person. How do you call someone a bad person? You weaponize virtue. None of the people, who are pretending to give a shit about women and that I'm bad to protect women have any interest in protecting women. None of these people think I better become physically strong to protect women. None of them even believe in protecting a woman in a physical scenario. None of them even believe in protecting their family. None of them donate to any charities that involve women, nothing. They're just taking the virtue and weaponizing it and attacking me with it. Me as a person who donates $25 million a year to charity to feed both male and female children. Me as a person who believes I have a responsibility to be physically capable so that any woman I'm walking down the street with is safe. I do more for women than any of these clowns would ever do. But they're just weaponizing virtue and attacking me with it. It's not even genuine virtue. That's what's so upsetting about it. These people, the matrix-minded people, have so few parameters and so few virtue. Whenever there's virtue inside of them, it's only so they can take it, weaponize it, and fire it at you. They don't give a shit about any of the issues they talk about. They don't care about race. They don't care about women. They don't care about gays. None of it. They take it, they put it in a bullet, and they shoot it at the people they don't like. It's all fake. All of it.
When you were talking about this, I wrote all these things down that we're talking about. Principal virtues, God, parents, true believers, fighters, traditions. These people they fear, right? All these people they fear. And these guys are slowly but surely starting to stand up. The scene we're talking about with Shia LaBeouf, he says, what we're doing here is a righteous act. Here's a Bible verse I think about sometimes, many times. This is his words. It goes, and I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And he began crying and said, here I am, send me. Brad Pitt turns around and says, Book of Isaiah chapter 6. For me, in business, I asked this question the other day. I'm so curious to get your thoughts on this. For the longest time, when I got into business, I was, a younger guy, 21. I'm like, okay, very coachable. Tell me, what do I got to do? I'm a coachable guy. What do I got to do? I'm a coachable guy. Super coachable. I want to make money. I'm sick and tired of being broke. My dad's at the 99 cents. Too many heart attacks. I want to get out of this. So I'm like, hey, Patrick, basic stuff. When you're doing business and you're talking to rich people at Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, never talk religion, never talk politics, never talk sex. Just don't talk about those three things. I said, okay, guess what? Never talk politics, never talk religion, never talk sex. No problem. We're going to business. So what do you think about the political climate today, Patrick, David? Oh, what do you think? Well, I think this is, but what do you think, Patrick? I don't know, quite frankly, I think I'm trying to figure it out for myself right now, but we'll see what's going to happen, whatever way you're deflecting and you kind of go on your phone. Hey, what do you think about God? What is your opinion on Islam or Muslim? Well, for me, you deflect that. Eventually you're sitting there, you're like, the people that I know at that level want to talk about those three topics. Now, sex is maybe off camera and they're kind of having fun with it, but they want to talk about politics and religion. So we, for the longest time, have been silenced, and now the ESG community, all this time they've told us to stay quiet, and they're saying what? They're talking politics, they're talking religion, and they're talking sex. Sex the way through LGBTQ, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with it? It's normal, it's normal, it's normal. No, it's not normal. Well, listen, you guys shouldn't talk about politics and sex and religion, shouldn't be doing that. And then you see this one, during COVID, one pastor, Australia, Syrian man, I don't know what his name is, Vinny. What's his name? The Syrian pastor, priest from Australia. And he was fighting all the anti-COVID guidelines, and his stuff is going viral. He's doing this. And you've seen these messages. Some of the people that stood up, they stood up because they feared God, okay? And for you, with your life, it's been interesting watching you go through your evolution of your faith. Pre-2022, former atheist, couple of the things you've said in the past, God isn't real because you can't prove it. Okay, kind of like that was more the Malcolm X argument, right? Bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people far too often for God to exist. I'm the center of my universe. That's pre-2020. Then gradually you start talking about Christianity and, in 2020 you made a video announcing that you were wrong about what you had said previously about God, right? Now you start saying people are who are atheists are angry, bad energy people, and I don't want to be on that team anymore. And even if God is not real, the world is a better place if people do believe in God. I know God is real because there's so much evil in the world that there has to be an equal and opposite force. The devil can't exist if God does not. And if you look at the world today, it is very obvious that the devil does not exist. And I'll go to the last one here with Muslim. Quotes from you. Christians don't have a religion anymore because they tolerate everything and stand for nothing. And by the way, I actually agree with you, the fact that they're tolerating way too much. Islam is the last religion on the planet. God is something to be feared, respected, and to prove yourself to, which means you got to earn his right. It's hey, I want to earn your right, your respect, right? How did you go, if you don't mind talking about your own evolution? Because us as men, if you knew me at 25 years old, you probably would have liked that party with me. I was a selfish guy. I was a guy you would have thought I was, right? And we go through this phase of where the selfishness kind of comes down a little bit. You still need to be selfish because you need to be driven, but to the point where you're like, listen, man, I got to really do something. And then somehow, some way, God enters. What's been your evolution of your faith, and where are you at today?
Yeah, I think Newton's, I think it's third law, equal and opposite force, what you just said there is absolutely true. There has to be equal and opposite force to all the evil in the world. And that the equal and opposite force to all that evil has to be God. And I've talked about this at length even with atheists, and I try and say that regardless of whether you're an atheist or not, you're thinking of God as a man in the sky, but you need to think of God as a concept as a whole. And once you do that, it's impossible to accept that he doesn't exist, right? I said to the atheists, I said, let's say there was 2 islands. They're shipwrecked, right? And there's 2 islands. Both of them are full of savages. On one island, you and your friend are shipwrecked. On one island, your friend goes and he crashes and they kill him and they eat him. And you go to another island and they want to kill you and eat you, but they don't because it's against their religion. Mm-hmm. Did God save your life? Who cares? Who doesn't even know the name of their God? But their God said, don't kill shipwrecked survivors. And now you're alive. So their God saved your life. The concept of God in and of itself saved your life. You owe God just for the concept of it, the idea of it. So even the idea of opposing evil as a whole is a belief in God. So you're either an evil person or you believe in God in some regard. And then once I understood that there had to be an equal and opposite force, I was raised Christian. I live in a Christian nation. Romania is actually, I think, the second or third most Christian country on earth. It's a very Christian country here. It's churches everywhere. They strongly believe. And that's where I began my journey, but I always had a very healthy respect for Islam because I understand that to a degree, to have a religion at all, you have to have an intolerance, to a degree. Because without an intolerance, you don't have rules, you don't have laws, you don't have any, like you said, you have to earn God's respect. If you're a religion which is tolerant of everything, then you don't have to earn God's respect. You can be a bad person and do bad things. God loves me, so it's fine. Well, no, it's not, because that's not the point of the religion. So then you extrapolate that out, and I was sitting and thinking, well, what's the primary function of a religion? And the primary function of a religion, I don't believe is the religion exists so I can live forever. I mean, that's a nice thought. But I think on a macro level, the primary objective of a religion is to restore and contain some degree of traditional value within the society. How do you judge, let me change the way I worded that. How do you judge the success of a religion? I don't think you can judge it by the number of people who join it, because there's lots of people who are Catholic who don't act Catholic. They don't act in any way particularly Christian. Anyone can say they're something. You can walk into a strip club and everyone says they're Christian. It doesn't mean anything, right? So how do you judge the success of a religion? Well, I like to think the best way to judge the success of a religion is how successful is it at fighting evil? How successful is it at preserving the morality of a population in X parameter, in X geographical area? So when you look at it from that way, you can't say that Islam isn't the most successful religion on earth. It's the most successful in regards to opposing evil. It's the most successful in regards to opposing its differing viewpoints. It's the most successful in regards to having people act within the limits and the confines of what it finds to be moral and good to God. It's the most adhered to. It's the most feared. It's the most respected in most forms. And then also I'd like to think...
I would say it's the most feared.
Yeah, it's the most feared. But what is respect without fear? Do we respect men we don't fear? If there's a man who could do absolutely nothing to you on any level at all, you might be nice to him, sure, because we're not bad people. But would you really respect him? If you could take his chick in front of his face, set his car on fire, and he wouldn't do a thing, you wouldn't respect him. You might be nice to him because we're not bullies, but you wouldn't respect him. Respect and fear are linked. They're not always the same thing, and you can maybe have fear without respect, but it's very hard to have respect without fear. And also, I heard someone say once that we see the world as we see ourselves. If you're a thief, you think everyone's a thief. If you're a liar, you think everyone's a liar. And I kind of agree with that. I understood that. I also like to think we see religion as we see ourselves. I like to see myself as a person whose respect you have to earn. I like to see myself as a person who has strong, rigid boundaries. I like to see myself as a person who will stand up and say, no, that's wrong. I like to see myself as a person who's not afraid of being shamed by whatever community for saying, I don't agree with that particular ideal. I like seeing myself that way. So if I'm going to see myself that way, then I'm going to naturally align with a religion that operates within that form. So when I say Islam is the last religion on earth, I say it because it seems to be the only one who will stand up and say, no, we don't care. No, that's not what the book says. No. I was raised Christian, and Muslims as a whole, we have no problems with Christians. None at all. I don't want anyone to think I'm anti-Christian and like I dislike Christians. We don't have a problem with Christians. We believe in a lot of the same things. We believe in Jesus. We put more respect on the name of Jesus than most Christians do. I just don't like the idea of people saying they're a Christian and saying, but because I'm a Christian, I can do whatever I want and throw all the rules away and none of it matters. Because once you have that level of tolerance, you no longer have a religion. Islam seems to be the last religion left with parameters. If you don't have parameters, you don't have a religion at all. So the closer I found myself to God, the closer I found myself to Islam. That's just how it ended.
And Andrew, speaking of fear, one could argue that Islam these days, certainly in the last 20 years with the war on terror, they've also been the most vilified.
Absolutely.
Right? So, you know, everything that we've seen happen with extremism and everything that's going on all over the world, how are you grappling with that? You've been a Christian for years now. Islam, everything.
And you know what? That's such an interesting question, because when I was younger, especially when I was an atheist, I would sit and think, people are really doing terror attacks and doing all this crazy stuff because, you know, they're upset over a cartoon. That's so stupid. And nobody should kill anybody. Nobody should kill anybody.
Charlie Hebdo, everything.
Yeah, nobody should kill anybody. Nobody should kill anybody. I'll make that very clear. But also part of me is now saying, why would you want to insult the prophet for billions of people? Why would you want to do that? I'm not saying I don't even want to make the argument against free speech. I'm not even saying you couldn't be allowed to. This is a sensitive subject. I'm just saying, what kind of person wakes up and thinks, I want to do that? I don't know. I just don't think that's a healthy mindset. Like when I see these Satanists, and they're, especially in America, and they're doing, let's keep it on Christianity, these Satanists, and they're dressing up Jesus as gay and all this stuff, like, that's not done in any kind of good faith. There's no good reason to do that. That's done with genuinely malicious intention. And what kind of people want to do that? And then the answer by extension is, I thought America was a Christian country. So how can you have a Christian country where the prophets of the religion are mocked to the highest possible levels within the confines of the country, and it's promoted? Is that a Christian country? Doesn't seem like a Christian country to me. I don't think the same thing would happen with Islam in Saudi Arabia. I can't imagine that happening. So how can you say we're a Christian country, but everyone's mocking our God on the streets? Ha ha ha. It's on Netflix. Ha ha ha. That's not a Christian country to me. So if you're not a Christian country, then where's the religion? The religion's supposed to enforce certain boundaries. You're supposed to at least show it respect, you know? And it's also kind of interesting because in Christian countries, there's more respect for Islam than there is for Christianity. In a Christian country, name one. They still don't do it with the Islamic Prophet.
Why do you think that is?
It's too much smoke. It's just not worth the heat. Because people believe. And I'm not advocating for violence on any level. I'm saying that even these degenerates who are trying to destroy people's belief in God, like we've discussed earlier, because they don't want you to have any baseline morality. If you believe in God, there are commandments, yes and no. That baseline morality prevents you being an absolute slave. So they're trying to destroy it. But even those degenerates who are trying to mock and disgrace God, understand there's a point where it just backfires and, ooh, this is smoke. And they don't want the smoke. And shouldn't God be feared? I'm scared of God. It's the only thing I fear. I fear God. They can put me in jail. I know I'm telling the truth. God's on my side. I fear God. So God should be feared. So once again, does anybody fear the Christian God? I haven't seen anybody scared of him in a long time. And it's kind of crazy because it's very interesting. The mass migration and all these things are leftist policies, but then also Islam is the most right-wing religion on earth. It's kind of very interesting. I grew up in England, and I grew up in Luton, which is a town which is mainly Muslims. It's a huge Islamic community. And there was a bunch of English people who were complaining about there's too much immigration, we're losing our culture, and I understood their point absolutely. But these are the same people complaining about all the left-wing LGBT in schools and all these issues. And I said, the only allies you have against this are the Muslims. They're the only allies you have in any of this. The Christians don't protest against any of this stuff. The Christians don't. There's very few Christians who will get up off their ass and complain. In fact, I saw on Twitter yesterday, one of the churches was lit up in rainbow. I have nothing against gay people. I don't care. And that's actually another point I want to make into about this thing. I think most people don't care, and I think that bothers them. Have you ever had an argument with a girl, and she's like stropping around the house? She's hot.